Welcome back, everybody. I am very excited about today because we have a legal expert for the first time on the Mining Coach podcast. And Hermien Uys is well known in industry in Africa and Southern Africa and South Africa, and she is doing amazing work. I'll have to introduce her a bit apart from herself introducing herself like we don't normally do, because the list is so long and I'll have to just check everything and make sure I've got everything. So she is a mining law expert, also general counsel to Vedanta Zinc International. She's been in various times of her career, been executive director of various boards of companies. We've also served for a short time together. It was a privilege joining and seeing how she operates. She gives legal and corporate and commercial advice to a company, but other companies as well in matters of mergers and acquisitions and all things legal. Very interesting international dispute resolution. So that's one of her fortes as well. On the ESG side, environmental social governance, which is such a big topic in industry at the moment. She's also giving advice there, expert advice. She's an MBA cum laude graduate from Stellenbosch University. So well done there, Hermien. So we're sitting with a very clever woman that really understands life in general and mining. But here's the punchline. She's passionate about lifelong learning and doing meaningful work. And when we spoke about this podcast before the time, she said she wants to talk about learning, achieving, and meaning in life. So that is a bit of an intro to Hermien. Hermien, welcome to the podcast. It's such a privilege and an honor to have you.
Thanks, Christo. It's so nice to talk to you. I think, yes, we met on the board of Group, but we also had the opportunity to meet one another in person when we visited Namibia last year, towards the end of the year. So I'm so glad that you're in my hometown and that mining can be done from the Western Cape. So very nice to talk to you on this beautiful Wednesday morning, and looking forward to the chat. And thank you very much for the introduction.
Well, it's well deserved, and I appreciate the fact that you have made the time for this. You are very busy. So, Hermien, I've done a little bit of an intro, but just tell us a little bit about your career. You are a woman in mining, and you're such an inspiration to so many other women in mining, and you are on the legal side of things. So one of the things we do want to do with this podcast is we want to just have the absolute diversity of the skill set required to actually be part of a mining industry. And you fulfill such a key role in mining. But tell us a little bit about your career and whatever you are willing to share with us this morning.
Yeah, maybe just on the legal studies side, there's a lot of debate currently around the mining industry losing women. And I want to say, well, I think it's a area, or an industry of the world where you can really craft almost your own career, be it from if you come from a legal background or a technical background or a commercial background. This is really an industry that gives a lot. It's given a lot to me in my growth, in my relationships with people, but also it gives a lot to society, and going forward with a green transition, it's going to be even more exciting. So as an opening note, I want to say to students out there that might be listening to this podcast, this is really still an industry that can give a lot, and where you shouldn't be focused on the mining side only. I'm obviously on the enabling side, if you wish. If you think about this industry as a potential career opportunity, just as a small sort of side note, my husband started at De Beers. He worked in the marine division, and I was actually wanting to go into banking. And we met when we studied at the Business School of Stellenbosch, because my husband was trying to pivot out of engineering into a finance career, which he did successfully. I, on the other hand, was looking for a more commercially oriented role. I ended up in mining. So just to show you that there's so many different backgrounds, engineering,
Yes.
law, finance, that can bring you into the mining industry. So was very fortunate to start with De Beers. And De Beers, just around this topic of lifelong learning, De Beers actually placed such a lot of emphasis on learning. They recruited people with an MBA background because they still placed value on that. And even after I joined, we were given so many opportunities to attend various learning courses, not only formal, I remember also negotiation courses, which was fascinating because at that stage, De Beers was in partnership with government in Namibia, Tanzania, and Botswana. And those negotiations are legendary when they come up,
Yeah.
for the marketing contracts and the mining contracts. So a fantastic company to start with in your mining career. Then transitioned on to Rio Tinto. Again, such a wonderful learning experience because I was a senior legal advisor at De Beers. I always had somebody that I could turn to, was the most senior person in the department if I was afraid of making a decision.
Yeah.
At Rio Tinto, I was appointed as the chief counsel for the Southern African region. I remember facing quite a difficult challenge in the first 2 or 3 months in a joint venture relationship with a partner that was quite difficult. And I turned to one of my colleagues in the Brisbane office, basically having done the research. I had some ideas of how we could resolve it, but I think he sensed that I was wanting him to make the call on the various options of, finding a solution. And he turned to me and he said, we appointed you in this role. It's a senior role. We have confidence in you. So you must make the call. And by the way, if you make a wrong call, there will be consequences. But he was joking. But it gave me such, it was such a turning point in my career. It was in my 40s. I think I just reached 40 when I was appointed to Rio Tinto. So again, colleagues, giving you that confidence that you've come now over 10 years, you can make that call. And then with Vedanta, I'm just jumping quickly ahead. I joined Vedanta after I took a sabbatical. We might talk about the sabbatical because I think that's where the meaning part came in.
Yeah.
And the international dispute resolution bit was something that I had no experience in. And once again, learning. I see myself as an M&A specialist. I did a lot of M&A work at both De Beers and Rio Tinto. And I get to Vedanta, and there's this dispute that is widely reported in the press.
Yes.
And I was given the opportunity to get involved with that, where I think with maybe at a Rio or a De Beers, I would have been part of a larger team. But seeing that Vedanta is so much into empowering, people that want a challenge.
Yes.
I was given this opportunity to work with wonderful people in Zambia, South Africa, and the UK. Again, learning something new. So isn't that wonderful that you can have a career in an industry doing legal work, yes, but so many different things that until today, in my early 50s, I still think there's things to learn. So I'll stop there, Christo.
No, but it's wonderful. And I do want to take a few steps back, and I have sort of prepared you. I'm going to have a couple of curveballs for you. But the difficulty of women in mining when you started out your career, how many of you were there?
I think more in the enabling functions, I would say, if I recall. I don't think that there were so many women doing, the hardcore technical disciplines. I know that there's been so many bursaries that companies have made available for people to study in those areas. And I really see nowadays, if for example, I can mention Sharon, who you
Yeah.
obviously know from Roshpina.
Yeah.
There's many more people. We've got a lady that's doing so well in health and safety at Vedanta Koliswa. I want to do a shout out to her. There's many women nowadays in hardcore technical functions, but I think in the early days, I think more of the women were in the legal functions, finance functions, company secretarial functions,
Yeah.
human resources, tax, yes.
Mm.
But I think the industry has come a long way to recognizing, what kind of adjustments they need to make women feel safe.
Yeah.
Underground, in the office, in canteen areas, in places where they stay on mines.
Yeah.
So I think there has been a lot of attention paid to what can we do to keep women in this industry, because there's so many research on the diversity aspect and how women and men actually, if they sit on the same management team, work in the same teams, boards, etc., that you get a better result because of the different way of thinking. So the mining industry has realized this, and I think this is why they've done so much to get people, from um, a female background into those hardcore technical disciplines.
Yeah. But in despite the fact that they call it the softer skill jobs were easier for women back then, it was still very much male dominant. Even today, it's still very male dominant. And you go into, into these international disputes, and you go into, for our, call it our younger generation that haven't been on the finance side, the M&A is mergers and acquisitions. But
Yeah.
if you go into these things, then negotiations and these things get quite vocal and quite testosterone driven, if I can call it that. And how difficult was that for you as a woman? And I guess there were not a lot of you that were occupying the roles that you did. How difficult
No.
was that?
Yeah, you're quite right. Again, I'll refer back to my starting days at the peers. I was so fortunate to work with fantastic team of people in the legal team. I mean, there were people like Bruce Cleaver and Alessandra Cox coming from Weber Wenzel, and these were seasoned individuals in the M&A world in mining, because they'd advised the likes of Anglo American and the peers from Weber Wenzel for so many years. And it was such privilege to work alongside people that have. I did not come from that kind of mining in-house background. I did a general sort of legal background training at a firm in George, and transitioned, into the mining industry by accident. But having had the opportunity to work in the first role that I had at the BS with seasoned individuals who had that hardcore experience, gave me a lot of learning points in these kind of negotiations. I remember in those early years at De Beers, a lot of the mines that De Beers had mined for a long while were sold to Petra Diamonds. We know of, Williamson in Tanzania, Cullinan in South Africa, Finch. And on those kind of transactions, you talk about, these negotiations at different sides of the table. So for me, it was such a privilege to sit next to these kind of individuals who had that experience. And yes, sometimes the negotiations were hard, but always conducted in a very professional manner. And I think the most important thing that I've learned is, if you show up and you are well prepared, and you can contribute, you can participate, no matter, it doesn't matter if you're a woman. And I've practiced that now in this international dispute resolution matter a couple of years later, where, as I said, I was now in the limelight. I was the person from Vedanta that had to sit next to all our excellent external legal counsel at the table. And such grace from our counterparties in conducting these negotiations. And I think they also found it quite refreshing that there were women sitting at the table, opening their mouths, and participating in the debate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the industry has come a long way. But what I want to encourage young women is to say, don't be afraid. The mining industry has got this um, label almost,
Yeah.
you're going to face a lot of men in the room, but that's fine. I think they like the woman joining them.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And so talk to us about your topics that you've chosen for today.
Yeah, thank you, Christo. So we've spoken about the learning bit. I won't dwell too much on that, but just the idea perhaps of these three words: learning, meaning, achieving. I got this idea from a book that I read when I took a sabbatical in 2017. My mother passed away, and we had just moved back to the Western Cape, where my husband is now working for a financial institution. And my parents lived in the same town as you and I currently do. And yeah, it was a time in my life where I spent, reading a lot, doing a couple of bucket list items, like traveling to India. Isn't that curious that I went and traveled in India and ended up working for an Indian mining company. And
Yes.
then I read this book, and I'm just going to read a short excerpt. It's from Jane Fonda, and she wrote a book, My Life So Far. And she's obviously had different chapters in her life. She was an actress, then she was a political activist, and she tried to make sense of all these various phases in her life. And she started the book by saying the following in the preface. This is now from her theatre background. She says, haven't you ever been to a play where the first two acts seemed confused? Then along came the third act and pulled it all together. Aha, you said to yourself. So that's what that scene in the first act was leading to. Or conversely, the first two acts can be brilliant, and then in the third, things disintegrate. However, the third act is definitely key. The payoff that pulls the seemingly random bits and pieces of the first two acts into a coherent whole. Now, for me, um, this is where I'm currently, the third act, meaning and looking back on a career where there was a lot of learning. I think I've touched on that now in our discussion so far. Achieving by, being part of transactions that were successfully concluded, but also being promoted, to certain roles. And now looking back in my 50s, having spent also a year in 2017 on a sabbatical, trying to make sense out of all of this. Why did I end up in this career? Was it just chance, or was there a reason why I ended up in a career that has given me such a lot of learning in an industry that I did not seek out? I was approached, for a banking program at Rand Merchant Bank, and I thought I was going to be a hardcore banker. Why did I end up in mining?
Yeah.
It's given me fantastic opportunities to learn more about um, the world by giving me opportunities to travel to places like India, Canada, Angola, DRC, Zambia. It's given me a network of people that have lifted me up, from which I've learned such a lot of things. And where I hope now in this following chapter, I can also contribute. I can also be a meaningful participant by, mentoring, which is a fantastic opportunity. Speaking at industry events, which I started doing about 3-4 years ago, thinking and debating, this whole ESG landscape that we find ourselves in, understanding how important in South Africa the social license to operate is, as we see in a country with such, this inequality and yes, so that has brought me to a place where I'm trying to be more purposeful in that which I do. I've recently also joined a board in my hometown that looks at reaching out to people in the community and making a difference where we are. So it's small steps, but it's looking back and thinking, if you've received so much from this industry, can you make a difference? Can you perhaps give back, not only in the company that you work for, but also in the wider sort of community and industry that you are a part of?
I love that. I love the fact that when everything is said and done, this third chapter, you reflect back and you say, well, what's my part in this? How can I add value? How can I make a difference with everything I was so privileged to receive? I love that. And I recall distinctly when I was interviewing, or Mark Monroe was on the podcast right when we started, and he spoke about, get present in school boards, or, go make a difference in your community, which so many of our people at mine sites and in the mining community are doing. But
Yeah.
then this phase of your career, just giving back, and you are a renowned public speaker. I know that you've also now been recognized as the General Counsel of the Year in 2023. And I watched that on LinkedIn, and I was yeah, privileged to know you and know this person. But you obviously are making a difference, and it's a wonderful way of giving back. And when you look at speaking to a younger version of you, would you advise them to get involved with this at an earlier stage, or just think about it actively, or just, so you're pushing a career, there's a lot of time demands, you may be raising a family as a young mother, as a father, but how would you do it differently, or advise differently now that you know these things?
Yeah, I think that again, mining companies are very just accommodating, with regards to women in mining, starting families and being involved with children during school hours, etc. Because we've seen with COVID now that people can work all hours of the day and or night, as long as that they deliver on that which is asked of them. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in the system. There's a lot of acknowledgement that people do not necessarily deliver all from typically 8 to 5, and I think that is attractive to young people, because they want that flexibility and they want to have meaning in their lives much more now, with the new generation. That is obviously quite important to them. I also think that you should start, if you have a hardcore background, like you're a CA or you're a lawyer, perhaps it is important that you do your articles, you do go, to a firm where you see all the various different sides of the law that can be practiced. Mining is basically something that can give you exposure to so many parts of the law, but maybe that you're interested in something else. Environmental law, construction law, there are so many aspects that you can have a look at if you do your articles at a big law firm, and then decide, do you want to build your career in mining, but from which angle do you want to approach it? I started in my 30s. I think I've had 20 years of wonderful experience, but you do not necessarily need to join a mining company in your 20s. There's different ways to, decide what will work best for you. What I will, however, say is I brought something along that I wrote down when I was on my sabbatical. And I think that whilst you're going through this journey, because for me, it took a bit of time to find my feet. I did a sort of articles and general law practice. I participated in that for about 5 years. And then I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers in tax, because that to me was the bridge getting into a commercial law position. Tax consulting is, taking the tax side, which is a bit of a commercial acumen that you need to have, combining that with a legal sort of reasoning side to be giving people advice on tax problems. So that was my entry into the mining industry. But during this period, you know more or less what your interests are, but you do not know that the answer is mining. I definitely did not know that until I was approached for this role at De Beers. And what I just want to read out, which meant a lot to me, was the following. In life, patience is not about waiting. It's the ability to keep a good attitude while working hard on your dreams, knowing that the work is worth it. So if you're going to try, put in the time and go all the way, you will realize the struggle is not found on the path, it is the path. Yes, life is tough, but you are tougher. Find the strength to laugh each day, find the courage to feel different. Don't stress over things you cannot change. Live simply, work diligently, keep going, keep growing. So even though I started with a general law practice and then I worked in tax at PricewaterhouseCoopers, if whatever it is that you start out with doing, you do well and you persevere and you show up every day and you don't quit as soon as the going gets tough, you will get there.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's an important lesson for our young people, is to, take the degree. I know a lot of people are going to be on the stage next week here in our hometown receiving degrees. Take that and, run with it. Take the opportunities that are presented to you. We do not need to follow the same path, all of us.
Yeah.
I know colleagues that will tell you from the age of 16 they worked at a mine. That is their career in mining.
Yeah.
We do not all need to follow the same path, but what I want to leave with you is that the mining industry, whenever you join, be it in your 20s, be it in your 30s, be it in your 40s, there are so many opportunities that this is definitely an industry that you should check out.
Yes. I actually just prescribe to that as well. I absolutely agree. Talking to my son the other day, it was a similar conversation of, don't be so goal focused and goal orientated that you don't enjoy the process along the way, because
Yeah,
it's in the process of understanding this mining game, of understanding all the different aspects of mining, which I guess in most careers, most professions, you can actually be working with a mining company, whether it's the health profession or whether it's, the financial, whether it's marketing, whether it's whatever you do in your MBA, all of that, HR, all of
yeah,
that, operations management,
yeah, yeah,
it's covered in mining. And if you, as you said, I love the fact that you say just, or you read there, just the attitude of, have the right attitude, just pitch up every day, do go through the grind. The process is more important than necessarily the goal. Yes, the goals are there and it's great to
yeah.
have a goal, but enjoy the process and learn from every moment. I love that.
You don't need to be the CEO at 30.
Yes. So what are you going to do when you're 30 in this year? And what then? What then? uh, or you've got
Yeah,
the Ferrari. Okay, so what now? Another Ferrari. uh, buy a few trucks for the local community and help them build houses rather. Um,
yeah,
I'm thinking about the fact that there are a lot of people also that may be considering a career change. And I never mentioned this to you. At one stage, as a mining engineer, I was thinking of doing a law degree and saying, okay, I want to maybe pivot. And why don't I go into mining law? Because I saw so many gaps of us mining professionals not having that technical understanding of what's the implication of everything we do. What would you say to people that are considering to pivot in their careers? Like, I think your husband did that. You mentioned that up front.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, I think you want to keep on learning. You want to keep on being exhilarated by what you do, because I think that is what gets one going. keeps you young. Nowadays, people don't talk about retirement anymore. They talk about, what else are they going to do after the sort of official retirement age, but it's not retirement that they're talking about. So I think if you want to have a long career, you have to think, and see the opportunity. So, for example, I thought now when you asked the question, we've got somebody at Vedanta. When I started in the Johannesburg office in 2019, he was, later on that year, he was appointed as the head of IT. And because of the footprint that is expanding so much, at our Gamsberg mine in the Northern Cape, the mine that is being developed in phases, and phase 2 is at this moment being developed with all of the various sort of contractors and people on site. The town is being quadrupled in size. So he put up his hand and he said, well, there's so many capable people in his department that can take over, the IT leadership role. Can he perhaps be involved in project managing, because this whole project of, expanding the town, etc., requires, a leader managing all of that. And that opportunity was given to him, and he's enjoying it so much. He's doing so well. So you can see I'm going to do a shout out now to Peter.
Yeah, he was on the podcast, yes.
Oh, right. So Peter is doing so well, and you can see a smile on his face, and he posts a lot on LinkedIn and on WhatsApp, about the progress that is being made, and it is very exciting. Again, of what we're talking about, meaningful. I think he's finding it at this stage in his life so meaningful that the change that he's making in people's lives, giving some of the contractors that are living in rental accommodation houses, etc. So yes, I think that's a good thing, because that lifelong career of joining a company, at 22, 23, and doing the same thing until you're 62, I don't think that is the model anymore. So that is, I think, advisable, and that is also why in many of the big resources companies, you will find people being actively encouraged every 3 to 5 years to make some kind of change, to apply for other senior roles in the organization. And if you've got a background in law or finance, I think you can do a variety of things, with regards to engagement, with regards to marketing, as you've said. There are so many roles in a mining company that you can apply for, that I think that that's advisable. Going outside of the mining industry, or coming into the mining industry from a different career, I also think that is something that you can do. You can pivot, go out, come back. There are so many industries related to us. I mean, if you look at advocacy, ICMM, I come across them quite often at these speaker events. How exciting is that, to be part of the Minerals Council? I mean, we know that some of the legal folk that advise the Minerals Council all come from either a mining background, they've been in a mining house, or if they've spent enough time at the Minerals Council, they go back to a mining house. So many examples of inside the mining industry being able to pivot, but also going into, I would say, relevant industries that work together with the mining industry. Motor manufacturing nowadays, you can go to work for Tesla.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's a good practice, so that people stay focused and stay involved.
Excellent. I've got a few more questions, but I just want to, before I put the questions, I'm just going to open the floor, because I'm conscious of time, and we're having so much fun, and we may just run well over the hour with this one, which I'm conscious of your time. But
yeah,
I mean, anything that you want to cover from your topics on learning, achieving, and meaning that you're so passionate about?
Yeah, look, I think what is also important is, I've spoken a lot, I think, in general about my journey, but I think on a more personal note, I think there's sometimes, people are afraid to be part of an industry, as you've said before, where they might think that, will my voice be heard? It is an industry that one looks at, and you think at the outside, this will be a tough industry. We know about resources, we know about, the cyclical nature of the mining industry. Will I be able to survive when the going gets tough? We all know what happened in 2008. We all know what happened around COVID, although I think it was so refreshing that the mining industry were one of the first industries that just got back up again, and took on the challenge of being safe despite COVID in a working environment, and did so much for the communities around them. But do you want to be part of an industry that seemingly are tough? And I think what is important is that this is also an industry that allows you to be your own authentic self. So that is important. You can find a reason, to be involved with so many causes. So for me, I think just to give that kind of assurance to young people that might be looking at joining, if you are looking for a change that you want to make in society, this is definitely, yes, from the outside, perhaps a tough industry to be in, but definitely a place that you can make a difference. We've seen in so many examples, in our communities, the difference that you make with an oncology unit that we are setting up in the Northern Cape, making a real difference in people's lives. We've started an educational facility now in Pofadder. People come back from having received Vedanta bursaries, and tell us what they've done with that, and plow back that experience in the sort of hometowns, and encourage others to do the same. So you can have that ripple effect if you've got that mindset that you want to make a difference. And this does not need to be only, at the end of a journey where, as with me, I'm saying in my 50s, it might sound quite
It's
old.
part of your new journey.
No, it can be part of your original journey.
Yes.
It can be part of your learning journey, because there are so many opportunities, to make that difference. One other example that I want to give is the Gamsberg mine falls into one of, I think it's 36 biodiversity hotspots in the world. And that is also something that was so fascinating to me, being a nature lover. I grew up in the Karoo, very close to nature. My father grew up on a farm, so we were brought up, in a manner that very close to nature and animal life, etc. And then I joined Vedanta in 2019, and for the first time in 15 years, I spent 15 years in the mining industry, got involved with our biodiversity manager, Chris Smith, and all of these interesting plants and species that you find in that area of the world. And now, unfortunately, we've got, poaching that people also had to sort of get together and try and stop. But just learning about things in South Africa that I didn't have a clue about, I thought to myself, or of myself as quite knowledgeable about the Kruger National Park and what you find in the Karoo. But yeah, I came to the Northern Cape and stumbled onto something quite different. So again, that passion that it evokes in people, and a lot of the people in Chris' team were so excited about the nursery that they set up at Gamsberg, that has now become a sort of a treasured place to visit. Whenever senior people from Vedanta visit, they want to go and see the nursery. So many areas that you can make a difference, be it community, be it in nature. So just really want to encourage people to have an open mindset, and say, come and see, there is lots to learn and lots to give back.
Sure. Very powerful. anything else that's on your list there that you've got for today before I close off with a question?
I have thought about studying towards a PhD. So just coming back full circle to the learning um, topic, I did apply and was accepted to start my PhD at UCT last year in a social topic. Funnily
Okay.
enough, I think when I did my MBA, my dissertation was on a hardcore tax topic, just to show the development. It was on tax derivatives. You can't get a more technical topic than that, Christo. But my my topic that I put forward for a PhD dissertation was the construct of how to engage meaningfully with communities, because this is something that is such a hot topic all over the world.
Yes.
We are obviously required in terms of our social and labor plans in South Africa to meaningfully engage with communities. Meaningful engagement had to be defined in the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Regulations to give people a sense that this is not me talking to you, i.e., mining company talking to the communities, telling them what we are going to do for you. No, it's actually a two-way conversation. I'm putting it
Yeah.
very simply now today on
Yeah.
the podcast. But there's so many cases, in places like Australia, where we've got obviously the Aboriginal laws, and in Canada on how mining companies are going about this today to ensure that communities are heard. So I had to put it on hold because our project in Zambia, which I just wanted to say, managed to get over the line at the beginning of November by signing a new shareholders agreement,
Well
took
done.
quite a bit of effort. um, but that is my goal, to um, start with those studies in the foreseeable future,
Wow.
and to see, if I can contribute with research in the South African context and further abroad in Africa, in projects that I'm involved with, to that body of law that currently, and it's a very early stage, currently gives guidance to companies around the world as to how this should be approached.
That's I love this. Congratulations for being accepted on that. uh, yeah, there are so many similarities when you and I have this chat, because I was at one stage heading up the technical side of a company with on the mining front, and I was considering a PhD on the mining side. So I think we all go through this. Okay, what's next? I need to keep learning.
Yes,
I
yes.
never ended up doing a registration or actually, being accepted for a program. I actually decided not to do that. But fantastic. Well done to you.
But you've pivoted. Look what you're doing today. It's something totally different from what you did when I met you in person last year at Roshpina.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm having lots of fun. I mean, my final question, and I know we're running out of time, but it's such an important one for our listeners, is communication skills. And you've just said that your topic is, meaningful engagement with communities that you think you're going to do your PhD or you want to do your PhD on. But the importance of communication, and I still want to read Chris Voss's book on negotiations, on leave nothing on the table, on that. And I'm sure I can learn so much from you on negotiations. But all of this, I mean, what we are doing, how we are influencing, leadership is influence. And for us to be effective in our careers, communication is such an important element. And, I think in your area of expertise, even more so in, all the technical work that you do is engaging, and there's technical research, and then you prepare and you have conversations with people, and, you negotiate whatever shareholders agreement or, new transaction or an M&A. But talk to us about communication, and how did you learn to communicate so well? I'm watching you, and I'm looking at you, and I'm seeing the expression in your face, and I see you use your hands, and your face is talking, and there's passion. And when we influence and when we lead departments and when we lead at mines, communication is such an important skill. What would you advise people to do? Because you're now doing, you're going on public platforms, you sit at discussion tables, you're part of an expert panel sometimes in the public or in a conference or whatever. And a lot of people are so scared of doing that, and fear of doing that it just keeps them from actually progressing in their careers. What would your advice be to them?
I think if I start with the topic that I chose for my PhD dissertation, I think the whole reason why that term meaningfully engaging, what is meaningful engagement means, was defined, is because people did not realize that communication or engagement is not one way. That to me is the starting point. Communication, you get so many people talking, and when the other side of the table reacts, they're not listening to what the other side of the table is saying. They're already thinking of what they are going to say next. So that is quite a skill that I'm still learning, is to listen, really. When we show up for these meetings nowadays on Zoom and Microsoft Teams, it's so easy to sit behind a screen and do other things and not listen. And people pick it up so quickly whether you are engaged and you are listening to what other people are contributing to the conversation. And then I think, standing in somebody else's shoes. One of the books that I read, a very, very old book that I should have read long ago when I took my sabbatical, was Dale Carnegie's, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think it's called. And I'll tell you a little bit about a technique that I've changed. I've been summed up by some of my colleagues as being too direct. I remember when I worked for Rio Tinto, one of my colleagues said he found the Australians direct, but I was competing with the best of them. So one of the things that Dale Carnegie says is that people, the average person doesn't like to be criticized. You are not going to get the best out of people by criticizing them. You have to try and understand, what this person wants to get out of the conversation. So that's another learning point. We can have a long conversation about this.
We should have another topic. We should have another podcast.
I'm still learning how to do this, but I think the bottom line is you have to learn how to listen, stand in the other person's shoes. And once you've sat in your mind at the other side of the table, bring it back to your side of the table and try and find some middle ground. The best way, as I've learned from our international dispute, is communication or engagement is not really done well with lawyers, fighting and shouting at one another. It's usually done well in a calm environment where people are willing to meet each other halfway. I'll stop with that, Christo.
Those are very wise words, everybody. What a privilege today to have so many words of wisdom coming from Hermien. Thank you so much for volunteering and doing this and helping a younger version of ourselves. Any final words from you to our audience?
Thank you, Christo. It was lovely talking to you. It feels like you're on the other side of the table, because you make one feel quite comfortable. So yes, I want to say thank you for everybody that has helped me grow during the past 20 years. I celebrated 20 years in the industry at the beginning of August. And just say to anybody that listens to this podcast, to encourage people to have, chats and informal conversations. And I think we even have days where you can follow people around, in the organization. Come and learn about the industry. Ask, to come to these open days. talk to people and follow them for a week or two in seeing what they're doing, and give this industry a chance, which I think has contributed a lot, to development in the world and to my development, for which I'm very thankful.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. Everybody, we'll just wrap up as per normal with the key learnings for today. Don't go away. Hermien, thank you so much for this time, and investing your time in so many people's lives today. Thank you.
Thanks, Christo.
I guess the best way to summarize today is just the 3 take-home points from Hermien today. Number 1, learning. Number 2, achieving. And number 3, meaning. Learning, and I guess that's a theme across everybody that we've had on this podcast, is a lifelong attitude. Let's keep learning. Achieving, do the grind, spend the time, don't quit. Progress and learn and enjoy the process. And finally, the meaning part, make a difference in your community, at your mine, at your mining operation, in your mining company. There's always an opportunity to add value to people's lives. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. If this means something to you, or you think it can add value to somebody else, share it. Share with them the podcast. You can visit us at www.theminingcoach.com. There are resources there. You can reach out to me. And if you need some individual coaching as well, we have those resources as well. Thank you. Have an awesome rest of your day. Cheers.